Hey, this is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling with Platinum versus Impact. My goodness, this is from a few days ago, so let me make sure I got this right. This was from Steve. Get it together, baby. This is from June 10th, 2021. This was the go-home show for the pay-per-view, and I've already looked at the pay-per-view, so I'm going to experiment with this, right? Because I'm trying to get caught up, and then as of Monday, I'll be right on time. But this will be an interesting experience because I have already seen the pay-per-view. I did watch this show as it happened, actually, but now that I'm doing the report, I'll be able to look at how effective was this go-home show with the benefit of the hindsight of the pay-per-view having already taken place. Why is this important? Because if you set up expectations and you don't deliver on them on the pay-per-view, then what people are learning is your shows don't matter as much. And this is one of those things that may not affect you the very next time you have a go-home show or your weekly show, but what it will do was it kind of fosters discontent. And if people sense that they're seeing a pattern of shows that don't matter, you're going to pay that price in the long term. We see that with Raw all the time. Why should I watch Raw when chances are I'm going to see the same matches next week where stipulations don't matter, etc., etc., etc. So we're starting off this week's show with Scott D'Amore introducing All Elite Wrestling owner Tony Khan for a summit. Don Callis interrupts the pleasantries, talked up AEW and Impact World Champion Kenny Omega. Of course he does. Callis denounced the idea of adding Sami Callihan to the Against All Odds main event, citing his history as one of the vilest and most hated wrestlers, etc., etc., etc. Khan offered up Daly's place for Saturday's match between Moose and Omega and vowed that Callihan would not be involved. D'Amore, though, they let him get the last word, which I thought was very smart, that the winner of this weekend's bout will defend the championship against Callihan July 7th at Slammiversary. Very good. It could have been accomplished in a variety of different ways. I saw people critiquing that, but I thought it gave appropriate gravitas to the event. Havoc versus Rosemary. So the idea is if Rosemary wins, then it's a one-on-one match. And if Havoc wins, then Havoc is added to the match. This seems to be a common theme we're going with on this pay-per-view. Let's face it, after Rosemary, it's one of those things that young wrestlers should learn, right? Rosemary's move would have been difficult to execute on Havoc. So instead, she's got a setup move, which is her spear, and she just leaned on that spear, hit 4 of them, and got the pin. And afterwards, Purrazzo, Kimberly, and Susan hit the ring, and everybody got beat down. It was what it was. It was not a great match, but it was nice to have Rosemary look strong, though in retrospect, it was a foregone conclusion against Purrazzo. Nobody in their right mind thought Purrazzo would win. Nobody thought really Moose had a chance. So this show is doing a very tough job. It's setting up these matches in these definitive ways, but where many of the matches in the pay-per-view were foregone conclusions. Tasha Steelz against Kimberly. This one's no different, honestly. Steelz defeated Lee. But then Rosemary and Havoc clear the ring and put Kiera Hogan down with a double choke slam. So I suppose what they're doing is perhaps setting up this idea of Fire and Flavor are going to win at the pay-per-view, which we all know, which they did. But perhaps we're setting up some flavor with Rosemary and Havoc afterwards. Okay, the matches are not very good. It is what it is. So we got Raju and Chris Bay against Trey Miguel and Petey Williams. These were four of the competitors in the X Division match for the #1 contendership. The only one who wasn't present is Ace Austin, and the whole point of this thing was one, a super cool Canadian destroyer from the top rope, which was nuts, but then for them to get wiped out by Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, his guy, but then all four guys take out Madman Fulton. So we set up all of that stuff. It was a rather odd ending, having Madman Fulton show up and basically wipe everybody out and referee throwing the match out. It made sense. I get that they're extending this X Division thing, and they still haven't determined a #1 contender. Hopefully Josh Alexander's reign doesn't sort of fizzle out at this point. But then again, he just did an Iron Man match. So, we can take the eye off the ball of him for just a little while. And I think that works perfectly fine. And we're stretching things out so that way we can get to, we can have some shows where we're determining who is the X Division challenger of note, so they can take him on it, Josh Alexander on its Slammiversary. So I see what they're doing. At least I can see the mechanics at work, and things make kind of a loose sense there. We got Joe Doring versus Eddie Edwards. Edwards defeated Doring via disqualification, which is kind of a weird way to go in to send Doring into the pay-per-view. Doring did end up winning his match at the pay-per-view, so that was a good thing. And we're trying to kind of keep the Edwards things alive and why Edwards is at ringside. It's all well and good, but it is hard because this was a show of basically no consequence for the go-home, which is of course a trademark of go-home shows, but finding ways around those kind of things would have served them a little better, I think, but it is what it is. We got W. Morrissey against Willie Mack in a no disqualification. Morrissey defeats Mack. He gets a little something in at least. Swan's making the save before Morrissey can crush Mack to set up their match. Good stuff here. And again, for a go-home show, perfectly reasoned, perfectly seasoned, and we move on.